We are at a time that the Prime Minister deems Amrit Kal. There are docu-series that are getting ready to broadcast to the entire country the achievements of the last 9 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government. But I have with me today Dr. Parakala Prabhakar, who begs to differ. In fact, in his new book, The Cricket Timber of New India, he argues that the 2 terms of the Narendra Modi government has a lot of flaws that have often been brushed under the carpet, and it is perhaps high time to take a very critical views of not just the economic policies, but the entire approach to India under the regime. Thank you so much, Dr. Parakala Prabhakar, for joining South First. It is our honor to have you, a scholar, absolute authority in economics, a columnist, and now the author of this very, very critical book, as many people insist. But I must say that this is perhaps something for the current regime to also consider.
Thank you very much, Anush. Thanks for having me. I really like your South First, and it's a welcome relief from most of the run-of-the-mill, especially mainstream media outlets.
Thank you so much. And through the next 20 minutes, we also try to stick to what we do best at South First, not be run-of-the-mill, and try and explore stories in a way that mainstream media does not. The very title of your book is very, very intriguing. I'm sure this is something that people have told you. The Cricket Timber of New India. The timing of this book is also something that is very, very interesting. Are you challenging all those mainstream media outlets that are all set to celebrate 9 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tenure?
Anusha, let me tell you, the timing is just serendipity. I've not really, calculated this way, but I must say that, I've been knocking at the doors of many publishing houses for quite some time. Had the first one whom I approached published it, it would have come out much earlier. But for some reason, most of the publishers were very, very hesitant to publish this book. They would first, when I just asked them about a possibility of publication, they would say yes. But after I sent the content, they would, sit on it for months and months and weeks, and then come back to me saying that, we have a long list waiting in the queue, and would you be able to wait until 2024? I know I got the message. I said, no, I won't be able to wait until 2024. That's how somehow, a very daring publishing house has come forward and did this, and that is how the timing is fixed. I mean, we have not really calculated that way.
We live in times when the Prime Minister himself, as well as his cabinet ministers, as well as leaders of the BJP tell us that India is seeing great economic growth. We are performing far better than other countries. But in your book, you speak about how voodoo economists are influencing or are contributing to the decision-making process of the Modi government. Even before we dwell into that, I would like to understand from you, as somebody who has great expertise in this field, what really is the Modi government's economic philosophy? Has it changed from 2014 to now?
I must give me an opportunity to justify why do I say that, that we are in an economic crisis. Why do I say that, the timber itself is crooked? The illusion is with the crooked timber, nothing straight can ever be made, has ever been made. And that's a formulation of Immanuel Kant. I have taken it and adapted that to the Indian situation. Now, as you say that the government spokespersons, the government ministers and supporters of the government, even in the civil society, the media, everywhere, they tell us, we have never had it so good before. And we are in an Amrit Kal. Achhe din, etc., etc. You know all those spin. I'm not somebody who can be gaslighted by this because I have access to the figures like everybody. But I go to the figures, I go to the data. Although the government of late has stopped giving data. You don't get data from the government. Once in a while, some odd piece of data comes out as response to the parliament questions. But otherwise, we used to have an immense amount of data during the planning commission days, but Niti Aayog doesn't do that. Maybe that's a different aspect of it. The point is this. If you say that we are in Amrit Kal, I would like to ask you, for the first time since the 1990s, we have had a gross addition of 75 million people to those below poverty line figures. For the first ever time, 75 million people have joined the below poverty line since the 1990s. The first ever time. And, this is the largest worldwide. No other country had added this much of poor people to its population. Even if you tell me that, you have made airports, you have made roads, etc., etc. That again is a point to be disputed. But then, if you tell me all this, and somebody else asks me, look, Apple, iPhone is being manufactured here. But if you have about 75 million people added to the people below poverty line, which is the highest in the world, would I be proud? Would you call that as Amrit Kal? Would you call that as Achedit? This is one. The second thing is that, before the pandemic started, I've written a piece which was, published and widely discussed at that time, was that the economy has already gone into slowdown. Now, then we had the pandemic. Pandemic, of course, has really destabilized our economy. We had, in one quarter, we had gone 27% minus growth, negative growth. Now, if you say that, you are the fastest growing economy today, you have to realize that, you are measuring it from a very low base. That is the reason it appears, the numbers are very high. Then comes, figures. If you compare the GDP before the pandemic struck us and the GDP today, we have not yet gone back to the levels of pre-pandemic, leave alone recovery, leave alone improvement. We have not yet reached that. See, this is the other one. Then you have, labor participation ratio, which is steeply declining. Now look at the inflation. Look at especially the food inflation, which is steeply increasing, which is, RBI's target is 6%, which itself is very high. It is something hovering around 7% now. And look at the unemployment figures. And, Anusha, I'm much more concerned about the youth unemployment. Youth unemployment is very, very high. It is over 18%. Now, if you keep these data in mind, if you keep these figures in mind, how on earth will you be able to tell honestly that we are in Amrit Kal, we are doing very well, we are the fastest growing economy, we have overtaken that economy, we have overtaken this economy. Now, you see, if the other economy is shrinking and your economy has not gone back to, pre-pandemic level, how do you say that you have overtaken? You have not overtaken.
You used a particular word to describe this entire scenario. You said, I will not be gaslit by the claims that are made by the Modi government. You also pointed to some of these numbers, the actual pressing concerns of everyday Indians, livelihood concerns of everyday Indians. I would just like to state that if anybody needed to see that these are the real problems, they need not look beyond the just concluded Karnataka Assembly elections. One of the factors that contributed to the results that we saw in Karnataka was the fact that people are suffering as far as living their everyday lives are concerned, whether it is inflation, whether it is price rise, unemployment, like you pointed out. So when the Congress here in Karnataka came up with their 5 guarantees, etc., very quickly, the BJP termed it freebies. This is something that the Prime Minister has often used, the term freebies, and he has shown his absolute disrespect for that entire dislike for that process or for the term. But now that you mention it, you mentioned about the difference of what is progress. Is it the roads that you built, or is it the number of people who have been moved into poverty, who have been pushed into poverty in the last few years? Is it the number of airports and ports that you're building? Is it the number of highways you're constructing, or the number of jobs you're able to give your people? So in this context, I would really like to understand your take on this entire disdain for freebies. Let's remember that as a country that has such huge disparity when it comes to the wealthy and the poor, can a can a union government or the chief of that government deem welfare schemes as freebies, or is that just another spin to say, I cannot deliver and hence I will just deem it freebies?
Anusha, I think you hit the bullseye. Now, there is a fundamental confusion in the BJP about its economic philosophy. What does it want? For instance, when BJP was founded in 1980 in Bombay, the founding creed of BJP was Gandhian socialism. Many people do not remember. We do not know when that was slowly thrown out, very quietly thrown out. And in 1991, when liberalization, privatization, globalization, the trio, LPG it used to be called those days, when that was introduced as a response to an immediate crisis, and of course it continues today, BJP was one of the parties which vehemently opposed that. BJP used to oppose privatization. Now, my point is that there is no creed as such for BJP as far as the economy is concerned, as far as general economic philosophy is concerned, as far as the Indian economy, understanding of Indian economy is concerned. Let me add one more point to this. Look at the agriculture sector. Agriculture sector has, seen about 20 to 30 million people leave the sector because it's no more sustainable for them. It is not giving them sustenance. Now, in that situation, you bring about 3 farm laws without absolutely no discussion, either in parliament or in civil society. Anusha, this is the largest sector, which employs the largest number of people, which, in every village, most of the people are engaged in agriculture, either directly or indirectly supported by it. Now, that kind of a vital sector, 3 far-reaching reforms, bills, acts are done with absolutely no discussion. Now, there was a protest against it, and all the protesters were called names. All that. When those farm laws were withdrawn, again, this is again important, no discussion on it at all, either in the civil society or in parliament. Now, which means that if you have some kind of a clarity on what should Indian economy be, how do we run that, what is the Indian agriculture, what is its place in the Indian farmer psyche, Indian population psyche. You see, land in India is not just a factor of production. There is much more. There's a lot of emotional attachment to land in the farmer's mind. So all these things are missed. Another one, that is the reason why, because they do not have a very clear, steadfast anchor in terms of economics and economic understanding. That is the reason why sometimes the Prime Minister talks against revenue, against freebies. Sometimes, and many a time, when the election comes, they also announce a lot of freebies. Which brings me to this point that, freebies, as far as the present Modi Shah regime is concerned, I give you 5 kilos of rice. I give you 5 cylinders, but I give my friend 5 airports and 5 ports.
You're bringing the talk to the issue of crony capitalism. That is something that has been an allegation against the Modi government, which you also deal with in your book. You also speak about the favoritism of the crony capitalism. Please tell us a little more about it.
No, in the sense, when you do not have a clear idea of what propels the growth of the economy, and if you show me that, look, such and such a person has become the world's wealthiest person. Aren't you proud about it? But on the other hand, if you look at the Oxfam report, uh, all clear in figures that India is now the most unequal society. You know, the people who are on the top, 2% or 3%, own most of the wealth. And large sectors of, say, infrastructure are under the ownership of one or two individuals, maybe one individual. Now, this is the kind of economy that we see today. The kind of, if a regime or a political party is unconcerned about distribution, about production of wealth, about creation of wealth, and the impact of social security, food security, job security, and if it is unconcerned about unemployment, underemployment, if it is unconcerned about youth unemployment in particular, if it is unconcerned about the productivity of agriculture, and only talks about the marketing, where a farmer in my native place in Narsapur sitting in, he can't be selling it to a businessman in Brazil. You say that on internet you can do that. That is one of the they say is the main attractions of the farm laws. But you see, if somebody who has no access to institutional credit, who has to borrow money or take udhar from the fertilizer seller and pesticide seller and or the local small money lending economy. More than 50% of our farmers are dependent today on the non-institutional credit. Now, in that background, if you say that I'm bringing in law whereby you can sell it to people in Brazil, etc., which means that the entire understanding is one of the pillars of the crooked timber that I'm talking about.
No, the government would say that they have launched this great scheme to help the farmers called the Kisan Samman Nidhi. You seem to be discrediting the government in its claim of helping crores of farmers in India. But even before I'll allow you to comment on that, I must say the kind of criticism that you make of the Modi government, not just its economic policies, but its its approach to India's social fabric itself, kind of contradicts what the BJP wants to achieve at the world level, to present India as a Vishwa Guru. And I would, since we as Indians within India, we are used to these terms. Since 2014, we have heard Amrit Kal, we have heard Vikas. It was first Achhe Din, and then we have heard about Vikas. Now we have heard about Amrit Kal, and now is the time for India to be. Now it is time for India to be the Vishwa Guru. Where does your criticism stand in terms of, is your criticism an impediment in the Modi government's posturing as India being a Vishwa Guru?
Anusha, the problem with the present Modi Shah regime is that it is very good at turning out nice phrases, attractive phrases. You have Make in India. We have Skill India. We have Stand Up India. We have, all those again, Amrit Kal, Vishwa Guru. Then you had Sabka Vikas, Sabka Prayas, etc., etc. All these, they're very interesting. Swachh Bharat. My point is that, all these schemes and ideas have the potential to transform India, provided they are implemented with honesty, provided they are taken seriously. Unfortunately, they are just slogans, very hollow slogans. Now tell me, if standing on the ramparts of Red Fort, did the Prime Minister any time tell you, in Skill India we have done this, in Stand Up India we have done this, in Make in India we have done this. And he's very good at communication. If he wants, if there is something really to communicate on these fronts, he would have done that. He would have done that, much more effectively than all their spokespersons and ministers and party functionaries and all the, media which is in favor of them put together could have done it, isn't it? But he doesn't do that. And I'm not somebody who would be satisfied with listening to somebody's public pronouncements. So I went into the documents. I went into each ministry's annual reports, and each ministry's annual reports concerning Make in India, concerning Stand Up India, concerning Skill India, concerning Swachh Bharat, etc. They do not have a single data point on what they have been able to do under these schemes, which means that there was not much really done, or nothing to write home about. That is the reason why, the general sloganeering is only to gaslight India, to gaslight me and you, and give us an impression that there's something happening. Okay, now you see, you have a 4-lane road. 4-lane road of 1 kilometer used to be 4-lane road of 1 kilometer. Today, 4-lane road of 1 kilometer is 4 kilometers. Now, the government is trying to, resort these kind of things in order to project that it has done a lot. What does it mean? It means that it is very insecure, that it is not able to do. But let us not get carried away with this. I do not think that the Modi Shah regime is very serious about development, because you and I and other people would say, what happened to the unemployment? What happened to COVID deaths? What happened to, hospital facilities, oxygen availability, etc., etc., etc. We talk about all this. What about, but that is not the basis on which this regime's power rests. They know it very well. Gas cylinder, let it touch 2,000 rupees. Diesel price and petrol price, let them cross 250. We are not bothered, because our voter votes for us on the basis of our Hindutva, on the basis of our othering of the minorities. Tell me, Anusha, BJP today very rightly boasts about the biggest political party not only in India but in the world. It is also the richest political party. It has got the major share of the electoral bonds. And God knows where they come from and why they come from. That's a different thing altogether. But, a political party, a political platform, which would like to represent India, should it not be a microcosm of India? Now, this is the political party which does not have a single Muslim person in its cabinet, a single Muslim person in its parliamentary party, both the Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha, a single Muslim member in its Congress legislature, BJP legislature party in Uttar Pradesh, as well as the legislature party in Gujarat and maybe other states. Not only that they don't have elected MLAs and MPs, but they also did not and do not give a single ticket. UP, Gujarat, they've not given a single ticket to a Muslim. Is this the kind of political party? Is this the kind of inclusiveness? That is the reason why I argue that under Modi Shah regime, the BJP has taken us far, far away from the founding ideals and founding objectives and founding principles of our constitution. The idea of India, which is a plural India, which is a diverse India, which is a tolerant India, which is a secular India, which is an inclusive India. We are very, very far away from that. That is the problem with the crooked timber of New India.
I'm glad that you brought up this point of why the BJP continues to be the way it is, especially when it comes to representation or the lack of representation of minorities in the country, where they draw their strength and confidence from as far as electoral gains are concerned. Like you rightly pointed out, a lot of it stems from Hindutva. So but I would also like to understand, as you mentioned in your book, there are multiple branches, there are multiple institutions that have also aided in this perception building, or let's say the image that we have of the Modi regime. And I cannot rule out the role of media, cannot rule out how bureaucrats have contributed to this perception. So I remember there is one point I must mention here. I remember during the 2019 Lok Sabha election, there was an entire channel that ran called Namo TV. Now nobody knows where the television has gone. And if you would go by the rules, it was an absolute violation of all election commission rules that possibly you can point to. Is there a systematic submission to the current regime, and what and how do you explain that? Because such large scale submission could how do you explain that phenomenon?
Oh, it really puzzles me. But then what I can do to you is not really explain the thing, but then I can analyze and take it part by part, and tell you what I think of those. You omitted one platform, that is the political parties. That's also very important. You see, political parties have not been able to size up the kind of or understand the kind of threat that this particular regime is posing to the basic fundamental values of our constitution. They've just not understood. This platform went on saying, it started its journey as saying, as I said, in economics, they said Gandhian socialism. In politics, they went on saying, we are also secular. We are secular, but we are genuinely secular, not like the Congress, which is an appeasement. That is a pseudo-secularism. They appease Muslims. We don't appease Muslims. We are genuinely secular. And, there was a time, Anusha, when all the non-Congress political parties used to gang up against Congress. Today, the situation is exact opposite. All the non-BJP parties will have to gang up in order to oppose the BJP. So it's a huge shift has taken in the Indian political landscape. Another point I want you to understand, or I want you to think about is this: that it used to be everybody saying we are also secular, but we are genuinely secular. Today, every political party, every individual would say, I am also Hindu, but not like you. Look at the shift. I'm also secular, but not like you. I'm also Hindu, but not like you. Even Karnataka, you mentioned Karnataka elections. When, the Congress came up with this point in the election manifesto that, they would ban Bajrang Bali. Congress people went on justifying that by saying that we are also Hindu and we are also Jai Bajrang Bali.
So when they tried to ban they said they would ban the Bajrang Dal, right?
Yes. So today the discourse has shifted from I'm secular to I'm Hindu. This is no mean achievement. This is one. And who are the people who are the basis of this support? I put them in different boxes. Not all of them are in one box. There are people, very tiny, minuscule, probably, is that, they genuinely believe that India should be for the Hindus. There should be Hindu Rashtra. Muslims should go back to, go away to Pakistan because, we've created a country for you. Just go. Why are you here? They genuinely believe, rightly, wrongly, but they genuinely believe that they support and, they would like to work for it. Let them work for it. They've been working for it. But, nobody listened to them. But there are a significant, I don't say very large, but very significant number of people who know that this project is very dangerous to the idea of India. They don't really gel with this kind of an idea of India. But because it is on the ascendant, it is now in power, they sell their souls, what I call the Faustian bargain, and, play ball with them. And, sitting in the newsroom, sitting in the editorial offices, sitting in probably, some judicial, institutions, sitting in, the other bureaucratic important positions, these people, just because they get some kind of an advantage in terms of their career, they go on supporting this and try to gaslight you and me. This is the most dangerous, and those are the. So there are some people who would oppose this, like me, who would call this a spade a spade. Yeah. So there are different kinds of people who are
I've
now participating in the conversation.
always said this, it's a rather contentious view for me to hold, that when the Prime Minister of a country like India, a democratic, secular, socialist country like India, says, "Kapro se pehchanenge," we will identify, you can identify them by their clothes. Or when he comes to Karnataka in an election rally, says, "Vote dene se pehle aap Jai Bajrang Bali bol ke vote do," that you vote, before you vote, say Jai Bajrang Bali. And I think you pretty much
So
cover that majoritarian authority, or the majoritarian imposition,
narrative,
perhaps
yes,
narrative in public discourse, the concern. I just have very little time left, so I have to ask this question about your transition from being a BJP insider to now. It's a lot of people have called your book harsh criticism of the government, but I would like to look at it as a realistic evaluation of the economic policies in the last few years. So your transition from being a BJP insider to now it's critic.
Oh, I was never a BJP insider. I was associated with BJP, of course, as you pointed out. But that's not a BJP of today's. It's not. That used to be a BJP which talked about Gandhian socialism. It talked about we should be very careful about the privatization, etc., etc. That was the kind of BJP which the BJP those days used to say that we should be respectful of Kashmirians. We should be respectful of the diversity of the country. We should be secular. And that was the time when people like me and like most others have taken in by this kind of a talk and come to a conclusion willy-nilly that the Indian polity now is a bipolar polity, where on the one side you have right of the center, on the other side you have the left of the center. The contest is between these two forces. But that is not to be. And in 2014 also, many people have supported BJP because BJP has not come to the electoral front with this kind of an agenda of Jai Bajrang Bali or Jab Mulla Kate Jayenge, Jai Shri Ram Bolenge. That was not the battle cry for BJP that time, including of the present Prime Minister. The present Prime Minister those days during the campaign, the candidate Prime Minister said that the fight is not between Hindu and Muslim, but the fight is between Muslim and Hindu on the one hand and unemployment and poverty on the other. So that was the kind of. But you see, slowly these ideas of majoritarianism have been smuggled into to the discourse, to the extent that today, speaking to my friends, I keep warning them, look, if the Modi Shah regime returns to power in 2024, it is going to be calamitous for India. It is going to be some kind of a apocalypse for the idea of India. And now you have very, very subtle dog whistles. There is some Dharma Sansad, I don't know what kind of a Dharma Sansad that is. It is calling for the genocide of Muslims. Then you have, small bangle sellers lynched. And then you have cow vigilantes, etc., etc. Now you have them in the civil society. Now, if this were to repeat in 2024, I won't be surprised that the day is not going to be far when, from the ramparts of Red Fort, these dog whistles will be called. There won't be any more dog whistles, but there will be policy statements. There will be announcements from the ramparts of Red Fort. That is the kind of dangerous scenario, the apocalyptic scenario for idea of India, the calamitous scenario for the idea of India that we are staring at now.
And your book captures all of this very, very very pointedly, and like you said, with a lot of research and data that has come. Definitely not data from the government, because the government is not releasing data. Because whenever you ask the government for any kind of data that could put the government in a position where people can seek accountability from it, the government's defense has been there is no data. But this book by you addresses all of
But
these
Anusha,
concerns.
let me interrupt you for just a second. You see, I have the data of how many times I was abused. And it is not, some 80 times, some 90 times. It is precise. But then you don't have the data for, how many jobs were lost, how many migrant laborers died, how many people died because lack of oxygen or beds, how many rural peasants have unemployed, how many have quit the agriculture sector. Of these things you don't have data, but you have a
Absolutely.
data about
91 times to be precise. Thank you so much, Dr. Parakala Prabhakar, for joining South First. It was an absolute eye opener, and so is your book. And it is high time that perhaps people started asking the right questions of the government that has been here for 9 years. Thank you so much for joining South First.
Thank you, Arisha. Thank you very much for giving me this time and this platform to explain my views. Thank you very much.